To everybody on this cold morning outside, but it's nice and toasty in here. It's really nice to reconnect with a lot of my longtime friends here in the community. Marsha over there, whom I did a retreat with at St. Mary Monastery in Rock Island a number of years ago. We ought to do it again, Marsha. And of course, my good friend Barb Gaffrin and her husband from Master Naturalists, and my friend Kathleen, who brought me to New Covenant Community Church. This was the first faith community I ever knew in Bloomington Normal, and it was because Kathleen invited me to come down and to come to some of the women's retreats, and she also invited me to read my poetry at the Normal Public Library when she was doing a workshop. And there I met my husband, and the rest is history, and I've been here ever since and a part of your wonderful community. So this morning my topic is writing the prologue to your new year. There is a scene in Stephen Sondheim's musical Sunday in the Park with George, where the main character holds a drawing pad in his hands, and he says, "White, the color of a blank page or canvas. So many possibilities." Each new year is like that blank page or canvas that we get to fill once more with a story of our making. Each new year comes with a calendar of empty spaces, like the unblemished landscape of a fresh snow. The poet James Cruz reminds us in his poem, New Year, that hope lives in the blankness of each new calendar square. I like to think of a new year as a mystery waiting to unfold. Not just any mystery, but a sacred mystery. A story we write where God writes the plot and we are the co-authors. In a sense, we've been writing a mystery story since the day we were born. A mystery in which we encounter many characters and must solve many questions in the course of a lifetime. At the end of 2026, will we be able to say we wrote another satisfying chapter to our unfolding story? There is a quote I love from a book called Choosing Gratitude, Learning to Love the Life You Have, by James Autry, someone who reinvented himself as an author after a career in business. Autry writes, "We have the power to imbue everything we do, every relationship we have, and every day we live with meaning. We have the power." It's common to think of a new year as a time for resolutions, but so often the resolutions we easily make on January 1st are easily forgotten by March the 1st. Dorothy Day was one of the great social justice and peace activists of the 20th century and co-founder of the Catholic Worker Movement that, as you probably know, operates houses of hospitality all across the country and the world. Day preferred the word revolution over resolution. A revolution marks a fundamental change in the way we think about something and behave. Day talked about a revolution of the heart. In a talk she gave in 1976, she said, "The greatest challenge is to bring about a revolution of the heart. A revolution which has to start with each one of us. When we begin to take the lowest place, to wash the feet of others, to love our brothers and sisters with that burning love which led to the cross, then we can say, 'Now I have begun.'" It appears as though that revolution of the heart is going to be especially necessary in 2026, which is already shaping up to be a tumultuous year. Need I remind you of the uncertain situation in Venezuela and the dangerous developing events in Iran and the threats our government has made against that country and other countries, as Ellen mentioned in her social concerns reflection. Or the killing in Minneapolis of a young mother, an American citizen, by a masked, gun-toting immigration enforcement agent. Or the lies that popped up afterward to justify firing 4 bullets at close range into someone who was unarmed and appeared to be trying slowly to drive off from a tense situation. At this time, it appears much of what we can look forward to is more masked, heavily armed law enforcement agents in our cities, more soldiers and National Guard in our streets, more chaos at home and on the international scene. What then can be done? That question that Tolstoy often asked. What then can be done? The Japanese have a word, komorebi, that means literally tree escaping sun. It describes how sunlight pouring through the leaves of a tree casts not only sunlight, but also shadows on the ground below. It's a metaphor for those periods in our lives that contain both shadow and light. In another of his poems called Light and Dark, James Cruz talks about learning to live with both light and darkness, held in the same container. As he writes, "Today I stand at the edge of both, knowing that if I want to walk in the light, I'll have to dance in the shadows too." We know where the shadows are. We've seen them already in 2026. And we must be the light. Can we learn to dance, as James puts it, in both a time of shadow and a time of light? What else can be done? Something that helped me through 2025, another difficult year, was to keep a wonder and miracle journal. I believe miracles do happen, especially if we keep our antennae on alert. I love a recent Netflix series called A Man on the Inside. Anybody see that on Netflix? Okay. Where Ted Danson plays an amateur detective. And in season 1, he goes undercover in a senior citizen home to catch a thief who's been preying on the home's residents. And at one point, an elderly man in the home tells Ted Danson, "Everything in your life, looking back on it, feels like a miracle." It's a reminder that sometimes even a seemingly insignificant event or gesture, if it carries with it great kindness, can leave a huge impression, can feel like a miracle in someone's life. Can we be the miracle workers in someone's life in 2026? Something else I found helpful to do at the start of each new year is to select a word that will serve as my guiding light for the year. And this is a practice that dates back to the 3rd and 4th centuries, when it was common for pilgrims to visit monks living as hermits in the Egyptian desert, seeking from them a word that they could take back to their ordinary lives. My guiding words change each year in relation to the events of my life. One year it was persevere. It was a year my husband was very ill. Another year, adventure. And another, mercy. Last year it was revolution, because I felt I needed my own revolution of the heart. And this year, it is mystery, because I always want to be brave enough to lean into the mystery that's my life. I also like to write a letter at the start of the year, fleshing out what I hope the plot of my new year will be. What do I mean by that, the plot of my new year? A spiritual mentor once told me something I've never forgotten. He said, God isn't a character in our lives. God is the plot. The letter is not a to-do list or a catalog of resolutions. Rather, it's an attempt to flesh out what I want to be, the story of this new year. And this practice of writing a letter at the beginning of the year is a bit like the advice Stephen Covey gives in his famous book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, where he says, start with the end in mind. Start with the end in mind. What is it you want to be able to say about your life when next January comes around, January 2027? I find it's helpful to write the letter in the present tense, as though all the things I want to happen in 2026 are already happening. So, for example, my letter might start, in 2026, I am a more peaceful and gentle person, less prone to quick flashes of anger. I look upon my writing and speaking commitments not as burdens, but as joys. My writing is deeper and more meaningful than ever, and so on and so on. And once I finish the letter, I fold it up and I put it in an envelope. And I don't open it again until the following year. I think of the contents of my letter as the ingredients in a cast iron pot, holding all of my hopes and intentions, marinating through the coming months. And often when I open my letter, you see I often do little drawings. I'm not as good as Marcia though, but I do little drawings on the cover to remind myself of some of the contents of the letter. Often when I open my letter the following year, I'm afraid I won't have met my expectations, that I wasted too much time. And inevitably, I see where the year did meet my expectations, and then some. There is truth to an old wise saying, write it down, make it happen. Today, January 18th, is the time of a new moon. Throughout the ages, new moons and full moons have been considered fortuitous times. So I encourage you to spend some time today on writing the prologue, the plot to your new year. I want to leave you with a story from the Zen tradition that I reread every year. I found it in a book called Zen 24/7 by Philip Toshio Sudo. It's a story about the preciousness of life and the wisdom of not waiting a single moment to follow our soul's deepest desires. And the story goes, a man is being chased up a mountain by a tiger. To save himself, he grabs hold of a vine swinging over the edge of the mountain. Then below him, he sees a second tiger growling up at him. At that moment, he notices 2 mice have begun to gnaw at the vine he is clinging to, the vine that separates him from the tiger that chased him to the mountain's edge, and the tiger waiting below to attack him. The man spies a luscious-looking strawberry growing in the mountain soil. He plucks it and pops it into his mouth. "How sweet the taste," he says. What is the lesson in this improbable story about a man on the verge of certain death pausing to eat a strawberry? Well, Philip Pseudo suggests it is this: why wait until death is near to taste life's sweetness? Savor life now. If you treat each day as precious, each day as a lifetime, as the Zen saying goes, then each day becomes like that luscious strawberry. And Philip Pseudo adds, don't wait until the car accident, the cancer diagnosis, or the death of a loved one to get your priorities straight. Do it now. Do it now. So these are a few thoughts on how we might write the prologue to our new year. The great poet Goethe once compared our life journey to that of a drunken beggar on horseback. What mattered, Goethe said, was not that the beggar was drunk and reeling, but that he was mounted on his horse, and however unsteadily, was going somewhere. Sometimes unsteadily, sometimes steadily. We will stay mounted on our horses this year. May each of us travel with trust and with community. May we remain attuned to the miracles happening around us. May we be light in a time of darkness. And may we keep plucking strawberries. And may we write in this new year a great new story. Thank you for your kind attention this morning. Let's take a few moments of silence to reflect on the words that we've heard. And then I think we have some discussion time.